All right, let's welcome Coach Smith. He's the offensive coordinator at East Texas Baptist University. Coach, thanks for being here.
Man, I really appreciate you having me on, Coach. I'm thankful to be here.
Now, you just said you're getting going. Did you just get hired here? Like, is this a new school?
Yeah, so I was the little background. I coached in Mississippi at the high school level for 12 years, which is
Okay.
where I'm from. I played at an NAI school called SAGU
Uh-huh.
in the early 2000s. Went back there as the head coach for 4 years, and then stepped into some Texas high school football. Coached my son in for a year, his senior year, his head coach, and moved on to Allen High School. So I stepped in, and the defense coordinator got the head. He's a good friend of mine, so he brought me in to be the OC, and I got to kind of coach my son. My wife teaches there, so it's pretty cool. All of us was together there, and Texas Friday nights are pretty special.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and then I was able to get back into college. Coach Ruzika, who is the head coach here, he's a DFW guy, and him and I kind of connected, and he offered me the offensive coordinator job, and got here about this is my third week.
Wow. Wow.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you're really hitting the ground running. And then talk,
No doubt.
and then talking to me in Illinois, some nobody. You're really hitting the ground running here.
No, man, this is awesome, dude. You're improving the football community. You're somebody, I promise.
I try to be. I started this 4 years ago in January, like it was 2020. So this has been going for 4 years now.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, I started it not to do this, started talking about sports. COVID hit, so you're like, well, shit, there's no sports to talk about. Um, and the funny part is, a coach reached out to me that's in high school and he said, hey, I'm bored. How did you start your podcast? Told him, hey, you want to jump on and just talk college football, whatever? I was like, sure. Hopped on. Another coach on there. He was like, hey, how'd you start it? I told him. Then it became like a competition, like who can get the most coaches on. And me
Yeah,
and his name is Coach Bandstra. He has a YouTube channel. We're friends.
that's cool.
There was one time where he got like seven coaches on. I said, I'm going to get eight. And then he's like, well, I'm going to get nine. And it became like a competition. But then it was funny because, like, if I had you on, I'd text him, like, hey, this guy's awesome. You should get him on. So we were helping each other out. So, like, the
That's
coaching thing
cool.
was like cool
Yeah,
because we're helping each other.
it's all networking. That's what the whole thing is. Just didn't know it was in podcasting until COVID hit.
I know. I think the only podcast I knew of was Rogan's. Like, I think that was the only one.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then COVID hits, and I'm like, oh, there's like 200 I can listen to. Like, and then all of us coaches got into it, and it's like, oh, there's a lot of coaching ones. I think me and him are the only ones that made it out, though, because we still do it.
That's great.
Um, so which is more big, the college football here or the Texas high school football? Which one's bigger?
You know, Texas high school football is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It is an experience. It is a fraternity that is just hard to describe. I actually, when I got out of college, I coached 2 years in the state of Texas, 2005, 2006. So that was kind of my third round of it.
Hmm.
It is just, it is phenomenal. I think for me, I always had aspirations to get into the college level, and of course, there's so many different layers to that, and trying to get there, and it's extremely hard.
Hmm.
But I really like the 18 to 24-year-old young man. I think those guys are going through so many transitions, and we can kind of be guiding and directing and what I call leadership, character
Hmm.
formation for those guys, because that's where they lose it, man. All of a sudden they have some freedoms, and they don't have a dad or mom kind of staying on their head. So
Right.
that's kind of where I think the college coach really comes in, and we start, developing this avenue of what I call leadership formation to try to develop them and help them during that transition. I used to tell all the time, guys, 18 to 24, this is your quarter life crisis. And,
Yeah.
and I tell them, I
Yeah.
said, dude, you're trying to figure out two things in your life. What am I going to do in my life? And where's my wife? And
Yeah.
essentially we're chasing girls or we're chasing money, 18 to 24 years old, so we're trying to help navigate that and give them some substance to them, and just trying to help direct them in that.
Um, so when you started coaching college, I've asked this to a couple guys, what would it be like the biggest adjustment? Was it recruiting? Was it just because it's football all day long? Or was it, I wish I could just coach football, you know?
Well, yeah, so this is kind of my story. Playing at Sagu, in a relatively young program that started in '98. I got there in '01, so I was kind of one of the first 4 year guys. So I was very well connected. The AD was my head coach,
Hmm.
and so I went from being a head high school coach in Mississippi to a head college coach
Mhm.
overnight. And I tell everybody, I went from scheduling 2 school buses to go to a junior high game 10 miles down the road. 24 hours later, I was scheduling 2 flights to
Uh,
fly 70 guys to Arizona for a conference game.
yeah.
So that was kind of the, you know what I tell everybody, I felt like I was fed head coach from a fire hose from 10 feet. You know, they're just standing there just gassing me. And the administrative aspect of it, I think I was prepared. Schematically, obviously we had to adjust, but I think high school schematics is really advanced, so there
Mhm.
wasn't as much adjustment as you think, because with the use of like what you guys do and resources and I mean all the content you can get,
Yeah.
schematics it can stay similar. The administrative aspect of it was extremely different. Trying to find the marriage of the recruiting balance and
Mhm.
figuring out the scope of recruiting. I think that's a big thing when you're recruiting a Texas high school guy. One, his weight rooms, and you're at the lower level college, lower college level. His weight room is probably twice the size of your entire field house.
Mhm.
His stadium seats 15,000. He may have an indoor, and he's got 20 coaches. And you're trying to get that young man to come into an environment that's maybe seats 2,000 in the stadium. Maybe there's 8 coaches,
Mhm.
and just the different scope of it. And kind of like the big thing for me was with DFW recruiting was, do you love college? Do you love football or do you love Texas Friday nights?
Right.
Because those are essentially two very different things. The model for us became I was very connected to Mississippi. We went to Mississippi JUCO, signed a bunch of guys there, and then we went to California and signed a bunch of California JUCO guys. That became our model for success there.
Right. Uh, so then you were the head coach, went back to high school. You always knew you wanted to go back to college, or was it just something that just kind of popped up?
Yeah, kind of something that came up. My wife and I, we have 4 children. Our oldest is 23, and we have an 18-year-old that actually signed with South Dakota State to play
Oh, wow.
quarterback. He's now at a junior college in Mississippi. Um, after his freshman year. And then we've got a 13 and 10-year-old, my wife's a teacher. So the essence for us is like the area we're in that we
Mhm.
lived in DFW, we've been there 6 years. We have never been anywhere 6 years. So we really kind of thought we'd stay DFW. I looked at going into the admin role. I was an athletic director for a semester. So I was just really kind of navigating exactly what direction to go. This opportunity came open and I kind of set parameters and I said, okay, it's got to be this.
Mhm.
It's got to fit my wife here. It's got to make sense for her. It's got to make sense for kids. And this administration over here just said, check, check, check. Let's get this done. And man, I've been in small college football and the support of our president and our athletic director, Dr. Blackburn and Mr. Irwin, those guys love athletics. They love sports. And oftentimes you don't see that at the lower level. So that makes it really fun. That makes it really intriguing. And honestly, guys, we're excited just because you have the administrative support, and you can look at our facilities at the D3 level and see that we're in a good place. This is a good situation, and we're thankful to be here for sure.
Um, with Division III recruiting, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. I know some colleges up here in Illinois, Division III, there's like they have to recruit so many kids, or they get like reamed. Like you have to get this many because they have a JV level, they have a varsity level, and so they're always like under pressure of like we got to get 150 kids, we got to get 200 kids. Like, is that
Well,
pressure in Texas? I don't know how it works in different.
yeah, some of them are real numbers driven. We have a number, but we did that in AI where, you're just trying to balance, discount rates and scholarship rates and
Yeah,
all of those logistics. Obviously, at the Division III, we don't give athletic.
yeah.
So, we're trying to stack money with academic and grant money and those type things. But yeah, we have a number that is our goal. I don't think our administration's is as much as some other ones about like, dude, if you don't hit this number, I don't care if you win a natty. You,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you're in a bind.
Yeah.
Ours is not. We've got a number, but at the same time, what's cool about Coach Rue, our head coach, and even our administration specifically, they don't want it to get overwhelming. They
Yeah.
don't want any player to feel insignificant, and he's in a room of 220.
Yeah.
There's a number that we feel like is a good number for us, a healthy balance. Our university offers a lot of different sports. I mean, we have a hockey team here in East
Oh,
Texas.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have two of them. We have a Division II and a Division III hockey team.
Wow.
Uh, we have lacrosse. I'm telling you, dude, I was the same way. So I just come over here thinking I'm coming to a little bit rural area
Yeah.
here in East Texas, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what in the world is going on? There's very innovative thinking
Yeah.
with our admin and our leadership, and that makes it pretty special.
Yeah. Because at Division III, people don't realize you could maybe get recruited to do two sports. They'll help you
Yes.
find the academic money and the grant money. Like, I don't think people realize that. They like look down on Division III sometimes and don't praise some of it because they're like, you're paying to play. And the argument is, well, maybe you are a little bit, but if there's money to be had, you could maybe play two sports and it's going to show that you love the sport. And guess what? It's still football, it's still lacrosse, it's still basketball, it's still whatever. Like, it's still sports. And it's a low percentage of people that can play college sports. So sometimes I don't know why Division III gets looked down on sometimes, but like it's still great football. Do they not watch the championships and the playoffs that happen? Like
Yeah.
it's still. I'm down the road from North Central, and
Oh
like
wow.
by God, they're our head coach played football there. Like they're massive. Like you walk over there and you're like, you could be Division II or more. Like
Yes.
this is good football. Wheaton is down the street. Like they're
Yeah.
good. And I don't know why people look down on it at all.
Well, and two, this is kind of always my argument with with athletes. Dude, are you chasing a level or do you want leverage? And what I mean by that is like, dude, if you're chasing a level, you need to go chase it.
Yeah,
But you may not have any leverage in the room, meaning you may not have any influence.
right.
If you come to a lower level, you're going to have a lot of influence. You're going to have a lot of leverage, and your experience is going to be whatever you make it.
Hmm.
And I still think it's college football, man. Football's taken me everywhere I've been in my life. I'm from a town of 400 people in the middle of
Hmm.
nowhere, Mississippi. But I've played in Colorado. I've played in Nebraska. I've coached in Arizona, Oklahoma, and all these other places. And all of those things, football did that for me.
Right.
Now I don't look back on that and go, well, it was NAIA, dude. We still flew. We flew our guys. We traveled well. They fed us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we played football. And so I think there's a big that's a big argument is, man, do you want a certain level? Well, if you do, you need to go walk on. You need to go take the PWO. You need to do that. And I understand it, and that's fine. And that's what you want your experience to be. You want the atmosphere, you want the numbers. But if you want leverage and influence and you want to play college football and potentially be an All-American or an all-conference guy, there's levels out there for you. It's just whatever you want your experience to be.
Yeah, because I remember being in high school, like getting Division III letters, and people are like, well, that's just Division III. And it sometimes sinks into your mind because back then there was no social, like the only social media was MySpace and Facebook had just come out, There was,
Yeah.
and I think maybe that has something to do with it too, is like Twitter, like they blow up the Division 1s and all that. And there's a coach, he retired. He has a lot of kids in college, but if they signed Division III, he blew it up on Twitter just like Division
Yeah.
One. He blew it up. And so
Yeah.
I told myself, I said, if I'm ever a head coach in high school and a kid gets Division III, I'm blowing it up, man. Like, I don't care. Like, it's still something to praise.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I told some kids today, we had some recruits on campus. I said, listen, all this is hard,
Yeah.
every bit of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But you get to choose your hard and just choose wisely, and this can be a great experience. I mean, you talk about class number sizes. I mean, we have some of our upper level classes, you may have 7 students in a class. You're getting a lot better one-on-one.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, I think too, talking about the element, kind of we mentioned COVID and all those things. I got to really research in holistic health.
Hmm.
And I found that because what's the big talk? The big buzzword right now is retention. It's not even recruiting.
Yeah.
You're at the big levels, the money's recruiting. The NILs
Yeah.
are your recruiting.
Yeah.
So I think there's a time and that I think your power fives and stuff, they're going to hire what's going to be called a retention coordinator. And
Yeah.
that guy's going to be just as important as the recruiting coordinator, because getting them there is easy. Keeping them there is the hard part, and getting programs that invest and understanding all of that. So, but I say all that, I got studying really holistic health, and holistic health is, physical, mental, social, and spiritual, or character, ever how you want to deem that. And what I found is we got to kind of calculating, why are we losing guys? Was it a playing? So, and it came down to a physical issue, like they weren't playing, whatever.
Hmm.
Or it came down to a mental issue. They weren't mentally engaged in being student athletes. So they're failing classes.
Right.
Or it came down to a social issue. They just couldn't find their people. They couldn't find their team within the team. Or it was a character issue. Like, dude, you're not doing the right thing.
Right.
And and you kind of assessed it, and that's ultimately what it is. It's usually one or two of those things. And when we started focusing on trying to make sure that players weren't solely focused on the physical part, but they got socially invested into the climate of the campus, go to the basketball games, go to the other sports, hang out at the events, do those things. And then, they were mentally engaged. They got to know their professors. And then, they were trying to, build leadership formation, character formation for them. They would retire. Then Saturdays wasn't so, um, you know, Russian roulette, meaning I live and die by how many rep snaps I got, or how
Right.
many, like it became a little bit more like, dude, I'm not getting the reps or the catches or the touches, but man, this is a cool campus. I've met some really good friends. I'm now dating someone that could potentially be my spouse, and all those things. So
Right.
that's what really helped us with the retention. And you get that at the sub level more than you do at the higher level, because it's just a smaller community.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because that happened to me. I walked on at EIU. That's why it's behind me. Got my butt kicked the first year, and I was like, maybe college football is not for me because, I was 6'5", 275, trying to be an offensive lineman. I walked in, they said, "Hey, buddy," pat me on the back. "You're too small, man. You're just too small."
Wow.
And they're like, "You're gonna be a tight end. You can walk on, try to be a tight end." And I'm like, but that involves a lot of running, and I'm not about the running stuff. But EIU was a smaller campus at the time. It was 10,000 students on campus,
Yeah.
which to some people is a big. To me, that I'm just like you. My high school had 300 kids in it. Like I'm like, this is a lot.
No doubt. Yeah.
But like we go to like U of I grew up right by U of I, right outside. That's a big campus. That's a lot of numbers. You go to these other schools, it's huge and it's like overwhelming. Like I had friends go to U of I. I got to get on a bus to go to class. I'm like, yeah, I could just walk for like 5 minutes. I can live off campus and walk for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love that smaller feel because you're not overwhelmed. Like you said, class size could be 20 people, and you're like, oh, this is just like high school. Like I'm more comfortable. Uh,
Yes.
the stuff they offer there for rec leagues or the other games, and the community comes to the games because it's a smaller town and
Exactly.
you have a more fun experience. Even though I stopped playing, I was coaching. I've been coaching since I was 18, 19 years old in that town for a long time. It's still like lives and breathes the high school and the college. And that's what it was.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's what it is, man. I mean, it just becomes an extension of a community. And I enjoy it. Sometimes I wished I would get one of those Power Five paychecks every once in a
Oh
while. That'd
yeah.
be
Oh
cool.
yeah. Oh yeah. But working 19, 20 hours a day. And
Oh, there's no doubt. I love coming home. Yeah, I'm kind of struggling now because my wife and kids have not made the transition over. And
oh yeah.
usually I go home on Fridays. Usually by about Thursday, my coaches are like, "Dude, you need to go home. You're ill, and
Yeah.
ready to go home and see my family."
Oh yeah. I mean, people heard those Power Five checks. Yeah, like, oh, he's making 800,000. That's not a lot. I'm like, I would love that paycheck to come in.
I just want one, dude. That's it. I had a buddy of mine that used to tell me his entire dreams and aspirations were to be a fired SEC head football coach. He says it's the greatest thing in the world.
We we all said that at school. We're all a little coaches center. It's lunchtime. Some of us are just sitting in there. I don't wish people to get fired, but Jimbo got fired. They showed his payout, and we were like, we did this wrong. We should have gotten really good, got paid $70 million, and got fired. Like then proceeded to get
Yeah.
fired. Or like, was it Ed Ogeron when he came out and he goes, "Yeah, they told me they're going to pay me something to leave," and he goes, "How much? And when do you want me to leave?"
Yeah. No doubt. Great perspective, huh? And he's just hanging on the beach.
Oh yeah, and Well, I'm like, guys, just give me like $1 million. I'll invest it. I can live off the 200,000 a year of interest, and I'm good. Like, I'll be fine.
No doubt.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point. Sorry, I told you we jumped down rabbit holes, and I just
No, it's good. I enjoy this. This is great.
um now I'm off track. Oh yeah, because you're talking about the big power schools. I don't know if the transfer portal affects Division 3 as much. Like, does anything? I don't know if it gets talked about. I don't know if like you're like, well, this guy thinks he's good. He's going to hop in and try.
I think the avenue for me with that, and I kind of saw it as a dad too. My son Caden he's a 5A player of the year in the state in
Yep.
DFW. Had a phenomenal career. South Dakota State's a tremendous offer,
Yep.
but it's FCS and it's a long way from home. But those guys were awesome. And then Northern Arizona offered him, and then he had one local offer in Texas A&M Commerce, and then their staff got let go. But I told him this story, and I used to use this when I taught with high school kids. In 2022, the quarterback room at the University of North Texas, the starter was 29 because he had played 8 years of minor league baseball, and
Yeah.
he was a freshman on the field. The backup was 26, and the third string was 24. So like I try to tell my son, and I've got another one coming through playing quarterback as well. It's like, dude, it's hard as an 18-year-old young man to compete against that, and I think for positions like quarterback and certain of those isolated positions, the transfer portal has been extremely tough on high school kids.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's been tough on everybody. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's been significantly worse on quarterbacks. Um, I think what it's done is I think it's good in some situations, but I think what it's done is we live in a generation of instant gratification, right?
Yep.
I tell the story that if I was in high school and I wanted to call a girl, I had to call her house phone and pray to the good Lord
Yes.
that her
Yeah.
dad did not answer. You know,
Yes.
now there's so many avenues that they can connect instantaneously. So it's that instant gratification connection to the world. And I think it's reinforcing that, and it's making it pretty tough.
Yeah.
Um, and you constantly have to be evolving in your mentality, and it becomes very business minded. I think a lot of guys are doing a good job with it. Just kind of outside looking in, and some are trying to keep up, but it's tough. And you meet these kids that the trickle effect does happen, right? The
Right.
collateral damage. Eventually, all of a sudden, it's July, and you got this kid hitting you up who is significantly more talented in D3, and then you track his story, and you go, dude, like, why didn't you
Mm.
just and they'll tell you, coach, I should have just stuck this out, or I should have stayed with this. And so I think what you're doing is you're seeing a lot more talent at the Division 2, Division 3, NAI, FCS. Like, there's significant talent. Like,
Yeah.
South Dakota State is
Yeah.
really stinking good.
They're good.
And their coaches do a phenomenal job. Their facilities, and I'm just gauging that because I kind of got a parent's eye view of
Mhm.
that. But
Right.
I think the separation is reducing. The only thing that's keeping it significantly separated now is the finances.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your NIL, but the talent wise, you're looking at D2 rosters. You look at some of the teams in our conference, and you go, man, those guys are FCS or better level talent, and they're
Mhm.
here paying to go to school because, man, it's the collateral damage of the transfer portal is kind of reducing the separation of talent. So
Mhm.
now the separation is just money.
Yeah. Because I talked to a Division 2 coach, I asked him that question, and I ask every college coach that question because everybody gives me a same answer and a different look because it all depends on their situation. He said the one thing he keeps getting asked was, how does this affect high school recruiting? And he goes, the only thing he can see is, let's say this kid is the best kid on his team. Maybe 10 years ago, he's going big time Division 1. Well,
Yeah.
now that they have the transfer portal and they can just plug in, now he's going to go FCS. He's going to go Division 2. He's still going to play college ball, but 10 years ago, if he would have played 10 years ago, he's going Division 1. Now it's kind of,
Yes.
they're still getting recruited, but now maybe it's hey, you're a walk on. Hey, it's a partial scholarship. Hey, maybe it's this because they can just pick and plug who they need and that's it. Like I talked to the O-line coach at Akron last summer and he said they were good coming into the spring and then he lost 3 linemen. And
Yeah.
so within that time, he had to get in the portal and plug them in because it's like, do you put this freshman in or can you go get a junior, like a couple juniors and just plug them in? And he said, he's never been more exhausted recruiting because it was just snap of a finger. And it's like now he's got to scramble. He can't get high school kids. Like you got to scramble around and try to do all that. And he goes, I was exhausted just trying to get these kids in.
Well, and there was a time that when signing day hit, college coaches took 2 week vacations after that.
Yep. Yep.
Now it's like, all right, now we got to refocus on the retention piece, getting these guys engaged because they're all pissed, they're all mad because we
Yeah.
just signed someone in their position. And then, so I mean it's made it interesting. And social media is like the ultimate
Oh yeah.
10
Oh yeah.
times worse, and we buy into it because at the lower level, the social media becomes I mean, how did me and you connect? I mean, you
Social
know what
media.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we have no reason to have a connection other than social media platforms and branding.
Yeah.
And man, I did. It's so interesting when I kind of knew I want to get into college football or be a head coach. And I'll say is, man, being a head coach is the greatest thing in the world. It's the greatest calling that anybody's ever had. It's phenomenal. Um, and I read a book by Jeremy Darlow called Brands Win Championships. And man, it completely like just changed my perspective on how important branding was
Mm.
and the uniforms and social media presence and all that. And I'll still attest that, and I'm a reader. I read a lot of leadership stuff. That book I mean, it's just reset my whole frame on like how if you change the perception of something, it impacts the appeal, which impacts the performance, which then in turn becomes revenue. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
whole cycle. And it all starts by just change the perception.
Yeah.
Just impact the perception. Put the facilities out there.
Yeah.
Put your athletes out there. Put them on a platform. I mean, our athletes here have spent the earlier part of this week meeting with Open Doors and discussing NIL at the Division III level. And we have a platform for them to go in and they can get NIL. Now it's not, I mean, we're not giving out,
Yeah.
some of the stories we hear, but we're
Right.
offering that at our level for our athletes that if you want to go brand yourself and you've got a kind of a marketing mentality, you can do it. And some of our kids are doing a great job with it. And the Open Doors is kind of the central hub for us to connect all of it. It's been really cool.
Yeah. Cause even at the high school level, like that social media thing has been huge.
Huge.
And the school I'm at, I got there in the summer of 2020 because I was like, COVID can't last this long. I'll take this. And well, it lasted a long time. And
Yeah.
um, there was kind of a Twitter page, kind of an Instagram page. One of the coaches took it and he still coaches with us, but he was straight up honest. He's like, guys, I don't think about posting. I'm not social media anyway. So I'm watching all the other schools post stuff. And this year I came in, I said, give me the passwords. Just give me the passwords.
I
It's gonna
got
be
it.
the worst thing we see. I'm just gonna take pictures of practice and post them. I'm gonna take
Yeah.
pictures of our 7-on-7 and post them. Um, the Chicago Bears outreach program does a 7-on-7 up here, and it's like for lower income schools, I guess. It's a 7-on-7. It's 2 days and lineman challenges. I took videos of stuff and just posted, like, look, our sophomore quarterback did this. Hey, look, our like it's a lot of work because you have to think about posting it. Um, but then what happened was the high school kids. I walked through the hallway. Who runs a social media page for you guys? We saw that this happened this weekend. We saw this happen this summer, and then it just
Yeah.
kind of churns. Now I got to get good at making photos. That's the next part because I got to do it all. And I'm like, where's my stipend for this, guys? Like I'm doing.
No, no, it's a full-time deal. And
Yeah,
that's what when I was at SAGU, I ran our Twitter because I was
yeah,
like, you guys aren't invested into the branding aspect of it as I
yeah.
am. And the best thing I did is I had two people, a student that did our graphics and did our edits,
Hmm.
and they were really good. But then I ran into a guy named Darius Broussard he's taking pictures at one of my son's 7-on-7. And him and I got talking. He was a videographer.
Yeah,
And dude, you talk about next level stuff. When I got him plugged in, next level. Like
yeah.
he's doing like snippets. I even took him to the high school at Midlothian Heritage, where I was with my son Caden, and he started doing previews, and we were putting like 1 minute, and then he was doing post game highlights, and we were showing that like it was phenomenal. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he does. And now the guy's teaching in a high school, and it's kind of changed his whole thing. He wanted to be a filmmaker, but now financially stability, like he's in a lot better situation. But I'm telling you, man, it totally, when I got a videographer and started using that guy, it changed the whole
Oh yeah.
facet of what we were doing.
Yeah. There's a school like 15 minutes away from us. They have, because of COVID, YouTube becomes big. You're streaming the games because people couldn't go.
Yes.
They're the Dukes. It's the Duke Sports Network. And so when you go to, I coached baseball there for 2 years, so I got to watch. They have like my microphone. They have like a podcast studio. They interview the coaches,
That's awesome.
they interview the principal. You watch their games on YouTube. They have like kids that want to work in sports announcing. So they do the games, they do the basketball games. They have different camera angles and they have all this technology. And what else does it do besides the kids that are going to school for that? It brands the whole sports thing because now it's just all over the place. And now what they see is they see the Dukes doing this, this, and this. So schools are starting to do that up here. And I'm trying to get our school to do it. Like, hey, let's make a class, sports management class.
Yeah.
Let's put them in this, give them credit. And then it's going to just blow up, hopefully, the school because it's a struggling program, and hopefully it gets people to move in and like, look how
Yeah.
cool this is. And
Again, just change the perception. It will impact the appeal.
yeah,
That's what you're talking about. Appeal, it becomes more appealing.
yeah,
So you get move-ins, you get new kids, and the appeal affects the performance.
yeah. That's why I'm glad you said that, because thinking of how I took over the social media, and then what starts to happen is our football players, coach, let's take a picture of this. Coach, let's do this. And then some of our football players were like, hey, TikTok's big. Do you think we could take over the football TikTok? And my answer was no, because I don't trust what you're going to put on there. We need somebody else to do it.
Yeah, no doubt.
But that was the next thing. Like they make like you said, hype videos. They make this, they do this. And like I try to do it for our weightlifting. Like, hey, we started off-season lifts. I'm posting on Twitter. I started a Facebook group for the community. They can join and see what we're doing. And, hopefully it'll turn around. We're a little behind because it's like the first year. Like you said, look at what colleges do, like what you guys do. Why
Yeah.
can't high schoolers implement that?
No reason. And it's all the aspect. Our society is enamored with being connected.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
all. Yeah. So how can we create different platforms to connect us? And that's
Okay.
all we're trying to do and get people, I mean, since I've been here 3 weeks, we've really started, kind of having a social media presence. I feel like I have a good presence. And I've had several guys reach out and say, man, I see you're doing your thing. You guys are getting it going. And it's not me. I mean, we have some great young coaches that are real innovative with some of the stuff, but it's really cool to see it kind of start to spark the fire.
Yeah. Because it's a whole new world. Like you said, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
When you got recruited way back in the day, you just had to drive there and see it yourself, or you see it on TV, or because I actually think social media helps Division threes and Division twos and NAIA. I think that's what it all does.
Oh, there's no doubt.
My buddy Nick Davis, he's a coach at Ottawa. He used to be the DC at Rose Holman. His social media presence at Rose Holman now to Ottawa, like the hype stuff they make for him that he can post on his social media. Like, I didn't know where Ottawa was, didn't know anything about it till you see it on Twitter or Facebook, and you're like, this is helping him. And every time he gets a recruit, he's like, another one. Like, it's just fun.
Yeah,
He's having fun
he
with
is
it.
doing a good job. He's doing a good job there. He's
Yeah,
doing a phenomenal job. And,
yeah,
and again, I know who you're talking about. I think him and I met at one coaching clinic, but I know him and feel like connected to him because I follow his social media presence.
yeah. He's from Charleston, where EIU is. So when I became buddies with people at Charleston, he'd come visit, and he was coaching at he was at Rose Holman, but he was like a GA.
Yeah,
And we stayed connected. He got the DC job. I started the podcast. He comes on, he gets Ottawa. He's texting me sometimes, like,
that's cool.
and that's awesome. Like, and again, I wouldn't know what he was doing unless it was social media. Like,
Yeah, no doubt.
uh, but again, like another story he has for like college coaches was because I asked him this because he went through the grind of like college coaching.
Yeah,
He lived off food stamps. He made $800 a month, and he's like, I gotta break through at some point, and he did when he got the DC job, now head coach. Um, from college coaching, do you think since it's instant gratification, guys may not want to take that path necessarily at all.
I think the biggest thing that I tell young coaches, like, dude, here's the deal. It's setting your ceiling. And what I mean by that, man, you can go, especially in Texas, you can go to the high school. You're going to be great facilities, great coaches, quality schematics, quality schemes, quality investment, supportive administration, supportive communities, and you're going to make really good money. But your ceiling, although Texas coaches make really good, but that's a very few
Right.
guys. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Your ceiling is significantly lower. So it's going to be like, I'm going to jump out in here and making X amount of dollars, and I'm going to just gradually increase. Whereas college, it is broke, 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 not broke. And you make this giant leap
Right.
into that. And then, I tell all the time, guys, if you can just get into the Power Five club, you're good. You just got to
Yeah.
get in the club,
Yeah.
And I think the elements, and it becomes exhausting. And when you get kind of my age, and I've got a few buddies that are, in the 40s, I'm in my 40s, that are going, okay, are we ever going to catch the break,
Right.
and get into that whole different financial world.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the deal. Like, what do you want your experience to be? Are you ready to grind for 10 years and then decide I'm going to get into this thing, and hopefully break through? Or do you want to go have stability, start out making financially really good, get your family started and all those things? And that's
Right.
what you see. College coaches, families are significantly started later. They're married later. Whereas high school guys, a little bit different world for those guys.
Right. Because I remember Nick at Rose-Hulman had a GA spot something a couple years ago. He sent me a text. He goes, "Hey, got this spot. Here's the intel." And I was like 29 at 30, and I'm like, "Nah, I think it's too late for that. I think it's too late for me to jump into that GA world and get $800 a month and live in a dorm."
Oh,
Like,
there's no doubt.
if I was 20, 21, yeah. But now I'm like, coaching three sports at a high school, my stipends is way more than just the stipends are way more than that GA stipend. But like you said,
Yeah.
if I was 21, yeah, now I'm 33 now. No, not going to happen.
Well, that's kind of what, I think, I don't know. My older son says he wants to coach.
Hmm.
And, my younger one may too. And my encouragement is going to be, hey, dude, we're going to get you to the highest level. You're going to be
Yep.
extremely broke, but you're going to be in the room with some very, good ball coaches. And
Yeah.
let's see what that does for you. But, my older one, he'll tell you right now, I just want to go coach high school football. And I mean, he's already there. And neither one of those paths are wrong. It's
Yeah.
just whichever one you want to go down.
Right. Right. Because I thought the high school path would get me there. It kind of worked out for you that way too. But then I'm a guy, I get comfortable. So I'm like, this is fine,
Yeah.
because I chose that path when I was in college. I was like, I'm not going to go GA. I'm not going to do this. I want to be a head high school football coach. Maybe college will happen one day. Maybe that still, could happen. Uh, the path that your son could take is probably a quicker path, but
Yeah.
especially
Well,
learning, especially
I,
at South
I,
Dakota State, learning there. Whew.
well, and two, I think, I mean, I had no one to navigate me. I was just like, my mom, my mom and dad were like, hey, go get a job.
Yeah,
If this one pays better, you need to do this.
yeah, yeah. Which one
Whereas
pays for?
yeah. Whereas, with our kids, we've lived it. So we can go, okay, this is the end result of this. This is the end result of this. What are you trying to accomplish here? And we can kind of navigate our
Right.
kids a little better.
Yeah, because a school I coached basketball at for 2 years, Neuqua Valley. The quarterback at South Dakota State is from Neuqua, so that's all I hear about is South Dakota State, and that's always why I know anything about him.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
because he's from Neuqua, and they just won the the national championship, so he's going to go to a good place and learn from that. Because Neuqua Valley here at the high school, they go like 8-1 every year. They're good football program. He's a good quarterback. Um, so like you said, you just got there. When you get to a new school, you talk about leadership. You haven't even done scheme. Like, what's one of the first things you're going to do when you come into a leadership role like that?
So, I think there's just an evaluation. You want to get, I'm trying to get behind Coach Rue and how he wants to do things and understand the process of communication,
Right.
The process of offers, all of those things. And I think that's extremely important. We're trying to do that. And then I've just been sitting down on my offensive staff. I was able to meet with them, individually and kind of figure out their goals and get to know those guys. We got some good young ones, man. They're fired up. Makes me feel old because I've got kids their age. But I think so that's been really good. And we've gotten into a little scheme. The first thing I do is I'm a big man. I love leadership.
Yeah.
So we've kind of dove into some leadership stuff and just trying to make sure, because I think, anybody says, hey, what do you think you're doing? I believe that ultimately I just want to develop people.
Mhm.
And my central mission is to kind of meet people where they are and help them get where they're going. And that's, these young guys trying to figure out where they want to go. How can I help them get there? How can I communicate? Hey, what connections do I have? And so we've kind of found a balance. And of course, we're hosting 30 and 35 recruits, the front and the back end of every week, trying to get to signing day. So, but we've been able to talk some scheme, kind of get some base, little bit of understanding of what the scheme is. And then, finally Tuesday, I sat down and said, okay, you guys teach me something. This isn't about me just doing what I want to do. Like, you guys tell me a run scheme you want to run. And
Right.
our O-line's very invested in a duo.
Yeah.
Don't have much experience in duo, but I'm like, all right, dude, teach me, and I think that gets us all kind of bought in and synced up. And then again, systems, we have a system for recruiting of, communication process. And then, we have systems of how we're looking. I have this 4-tier system that I got from Craig Rochelle on how we kind of rate players and how we rate priorities of what needs to get done. And, whether it's tier 1 or tier 4, and kind of get those things in place so that we're kind of speaking the same language. And I
Right.
think those things are really important, and of course they're young guys. So take them out to eat and pay for their meal. Of course they love that. So,
Oh yeah, of course, of course. And then you'll tell them when you get that big time Power Five gig, remember who paid for all that stuff.
yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Don't forget us, old little people.
Like, hey, I need a new truck. So can you get me this new truck here? Or,
Don't you need a tax write-off? Yeah.
yeah, you need a tax write-off for like, hey, my mortgage payment's coming up. You want to take care of that for like 2 months or 3 months
No doubt.
or just hire me as an analyst. Pay me this much money for an analyst and I'll be there. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
With it being so soon, have you met with like the actual team that's already there? Like, how does that go?
So I went in, and of course we had a team meeting to kind of launch the off season, and was able to
Yeah.
kind of share some experiences. Uh, when I was doing a lot of leadership assessment, one of the things that came out is I'm a storyteller, and I love just telling stories. So I've been able to kind of share a few stories with these guys, and that all get back to some motivational point. And so I've done that a couple times, and then I've been able to, NCAA doesn't allow us to kind of get into scheme with our players,
Mhm.
but we're doing our discipleship. We're a Christian-based university, and then we're doing some leadership formation with our quarterbacks, and kind of I'm taking them through a curriculum called "Developing the Leader Within You" by John C. Maxwell, which is something that I've done with, man. I mean, every sport I've ever coached and every leader I've ever done have went through this curriculum. So we're
Mhm.
kind of getting to do some of that. No scheme, no football because of rules and regs.
Yeah.
But man, relationships override scheme
Yes.
6 days a week, 2 times on Sunday. So
I was gonna
uh,
say that the building relationships, the culture in your room, whether it's quarterback room, D line room, whatever it is. Like in my O line room, they know when we walk in, we watch film. It's not going to be personal. It might be rough. We can joke around with each other. And when the seniors started to do the jokes with the younger kids, that's when I knew it clicked and we could
yeah,
have fun and we can do whatever. And then when we go onto the field, they know exactly what I'm about. They know how it's supposed to be. And it's an awesome feeling because, especially O line, I don't care what people say, that's the most connected room there is.
it is. It is. They're awesome.
Yeah.
And it is the most fun. And I the big thing I started kind of what you're saying is I call it isolated conflict. Like that's one of the first things I teach is like, dude, this is isolated. So if we have conflict, it's isolated.
Yeah.
And 2 seconds later, I'm gonna ask you how your girlfriend's doing, or
Yep.
I'm gonna ask you what you're eating for dinner.
Yep.
Don't carry grudges based on isolated events. Like, dude,
Yep.
I coach with a passion, I coach with intensity. It's not personal, like you said, but
Yeah.
it's isolated conflict. Let it be there, and let's move on and go on about our day.
Yeah, because like this year, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. And I have the worst phrases and the worst whatever. One of our young linemen was really high, like up really high, and I'm like, I kept rewinding it, and everybody's looking around, and I'm like, "Man, you're higher than Snoop Dogg right now. What are we doing here?" And like, it's one of those like awkward things, but I'm not thinking, I'm just doing it. And my senior
Yeah,
alignment was like, "Man, Coach Steve, that was terrible." Like, and it's just like loosey goosey type of thing where it's not. I don't want film to be stressful. You don't want
no
any
doubt.
to be, and so I say stuff like that, or like, I'm like, hey, you guys remember the Pizza Hut buffet, or are you guys too young for that? Just imagine the buffet's in front of you, and that's how quick we got to get there, and stuff like that. And then they're like, Steve, Coach Steve, that's a horrible joke. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well, you transition into dad jokes really quickly and you don't realize it. So,
oh yeah, no, I have no kids, but they're like my kids, so the dad jokes come out, or whatever. Or I'm from the country, so sometimes the country phrases come in, and they look at me because
no doubt.
I'm in the suburbs of Chicago now, and they're like, what? What are you talking about? What's corn? Like,
Very much so.
it's sorry, that was horrible joking there, but I just sit there and I'm like, it just comes out, or I'm like, I make deals with them, like, hey, if you don't do this, I'm shaving your head to mine. Like they have
No
the,
doubt.
I'm like, hey, I
No
got the
doubt.
razors, let's go. And then, or I make, you know how it is, or like,
Oh,
hey,
I
I'll
tell
buy
my
you.
quarterbacks all the time that I've got the best haircut in the room and everybody needs to get on board with it. So,
Oh yeah, they
so
make fun of
yeah, I'm
me.
with you. Yeah.
I'm like, hey guys, this hairline's been here since I was 20. It hasn't moved, so I'm still doing pretty good. Or I'm like, when I get white hairs in my beard, I name it after the line. I'm like, this one's Christian, this one's Joe, this one's
No doubt.
the dad jokes come out real big. Well, especially because our head coach has four kids, our JV coach has four kids, and blah. So I hear their dad jokes all the time, so I just bring it in. And the head coach has three girls and one boy, and he'll come in and be like, "Man, my daughter's tougher than all you mother." Like, and
Oh, there's no doubt.
she comes running in with a helmet and hits them, and she goes, I want to hit you guys." And I'm like, "Why can't you guys be tough like her?"
Yeah.
And it's just loosey goosey type of stuff. But like you said, that's the leadership stuff. That's I love how all the words you said. It now makes me think, and I'm like, never read those books, but somehow I figured it out, or I didn't figure it out, but I know it. I don't know where I know it
Yeah.
from. Maybe it was college coaches, maybe it was another high school coach that they didn't even know what they were doing because everything's evolved. Maybe that's how it works. I don't know. Like in high school, we always took trips. We fundraise, we go to a trip, and another high school coach I worked at, we would go have an away trip to like a YMCA campus thing. We stay there for 3 days for practice. And it's the best. It's a leadership thing. They do different things. And those teams are the closest and they win the most because they're closer. Like you said, it's about them. It's not about anything else. It's about them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like, man, this is us and this is our experience and we're going to make it the best and we're going to go win ball games and we're going to enjoy doing it.
Yeah. With last recruiting question, because I know it's late. You said how many kids you've had on campus to recruit. Has that always been the normal thing, or is that ramped up because of how things have changed?
I think I think every program has a different model. Again, being here 3 weeks, we're kind of figuring out this is the model here.
Yeah.
We feel like we're just trying to, and plus Texas has so many different programs. There's just so
Yeah.
much football here.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is kind of focused on the fact that I mean you're pulling from so many different schools.
Yeah.
That there's a lot, and then Texas is kind of geographically like there's East Texas, there's DFW, there's South Texas, and there's West Texas. And it's kind of geographically based, and there's more to it. And there's the Panhandle, and there's the Houston area, and there's more than just what I'm saying. But like
Yeah.
ultimately, like we've seen a ramp in numbers because and we've seen every extreme. We've seen kids who are very D3
Mhm.
Division 3 caliber kids, and
Yep.
that's a perfect fit for them. They're good, morally sound kids. Or we see a lot of my dad went here. ETBU has a strong kind of lineage of
Mhm.
family history, so we're
Right.
kind of seeing that. But then we also see some guys that walk in the room, we go, dude, what's going on with you?
Mhm.
Coach such and such was talking to me. Then they dropped me, and then they had this, and we kind of have that element of it. So
Right.
we're kind of seeing all ends of the spectrum, but we're just trying to make sure that the kids know we're here and know there is an option. And it's the
Right.
same thing I tell them. Hey, man, you want to play college football? There is an option for you.
Right.
And
Yeah. You're
that's
my
kind of
second
what
podcast today. The coach, he coaches at Pampa, Coach Arnett. He was on here right
uh-huh.
before you, and he he coached in the Houston area for a while. He's coached in Texas. Then he said he moved up to Pampa last year, 2 years ago. That was his first like snow day. They had snow. It was like 3 or 4 inches. And he goes, "What is this?" Because it
Oh
was
no,
just,
no.
and I'm like, wait, so part of Texas has that and the others doesn't? He goes, "Steve, Texas is bigger than what the map shows. Like it's huge." He's
Oh,
like,
it's unbelievable.
he's like, just driving from this spot to this spot, it's a whole different world. He's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, coming from Mississippi, we could drive from one end to the other in like 4 hours.
that's
Uh,
Illinois too. Yeah.
yeah, 4 hours won't even get you into West Texas. I mean, like it's
Wow.
unbelievable, man.
Wow. Because
Yeah,
like growing up in central Illinois, just come to the suburbs is 2.5 hours. And I thought that was a huge like change.
yeah,
No, he told me that about Texas. So I'm like, oh, never mind. I'll keep my mouth shut. I don't know anything.
exactly.
Well, coach, I know it's late. I appreciate your time. This is just how the podcast rolls. There's no scheme, it's just talking.
Dude, I love it. And I'm thankful. Appreciate you having me on. I'm gonna share myself so we can connect. Anytime you need me to come on, man, I'd be glad to do it. If you need me to jump on, man, I appreciate your platform. This is awesome. This is great for football. This is great for the football community. So thanks for having me, man.
No, I appreciate you. Every guest I have is big time. So you're big time. And I appreciate it.
Well, I don't know about that, but I really appreciate it.